On and I'm gonna show you some things today with this alien thing that they got for the masses, and I'm gonna get into a documentary called Alien Contact Secret Society. I'm gonna break it down basically at the beginning and just let it play, because the reason why I'm gonna let it play is because it is truth. The only thing they messed up on is the so-called aliens. It's not aliens basically come to earth, yes, and mate with mankind. Just remember that. That's the fallen angels. A lot of people don't want to believe in that part of the so-called teaching, but yes, it is real. They're not different from the human being. They don't look like these. You understand me? All the fallen angels is basically human beings almost. They're just corrupted. That's what it is. They work for the devil, and that's the reason why they was falling. You understand? And those are the ones who actually mate with mankind and bring us where we at right now. They're the one who controlling the earth. So all of these videos that you're seeing out with these fake aliens is a government teaching. They want you to believe that aliens is real. That's why they do this right here. All you go get from them is CGI, nothing real. Just pay attention, nothing real. And of course the alien go look exactly like the Hollywood say it look. I already told you people, it's just Hollywood games. They're playing on the masses, nothing but CGI. They're playing games. Aliens is not real, and I told you, you can't see them different from you. Fallen angels mixed up their bloodline running the earth. That's all you need to understand. This is not real. There you go. It look real to you? So somebody on the side holding the camera, it's not real, just garbage. Yes, and of course they want you to believe in aliens. That's the reason why they give you this right here. And of course you're hearing it more and more nowadays with the so-called spotting and all those so-called aircraft, UFOs in the sky. It's nothing but fakery. Move. Now let's get into this alien contact secret society. And I already explained it to you already. There's no aliens that come to earth. And remember what you're living, people. You're living in a trap dome. A dome. Nothing coming in, nothing going out. You understand that? These fallen angels here from the beginning of time. That's what you need to understand. From the beginning of time on earth, they was right here. And now, their bloodline still here manipulating the people. That's what you need to get. Watch this documentary right here. Secret Society and Alien Contacts. Just watch it right here. I ain't going to interrupt it. Just let it run. I already break it down and show you. Alien don't exist. Use your discernment. Make it run.
This is the story of how a race of serpent beings have taken control of humanity in plain sight. This is a tale that spans thousands of years and has been the root cause of all the major religions on the planet. Thousands of years ago, a special genetically advanced race of beings came to Earth. They were seen as gods by primitive man and worshipped. They set themselves apart, and yet some mated with humans and created a special race. When the elders departed, this hybrid species remained and taught mankind. Civilization emerged. Writing, art, science, engineering, architecture, and more, spreading around the globe. The human race that had been happy for tens of thousands of years to hunt and gather, now built massive pyramids, cultivated the land, forged steel, and eventually held tiny computers in their hands that enabled them to communicate around the world instantly and discover knowledge with the swipe of a finger. All of this and more is only part of the story, for our benefactors had an ulterior motive. They took control of our minds and hearts. They control this world. They control you. From the moment you are born, you are numbered and moved through a process to feed their machine. Nobody is truly free. We are all working for the masters. Every now and then, they are revealed to the world, and in the 18th century, we had a glimpse of their massive power. We know them as the Illuminati. From huge international corporations to hidden governments, from secret societies to medicine, the Illuminati are in control. They spread lies to cover up their real identities, but they are hidden in the golden thread of history, and we can reveal them and their schemes. Do you believe you live in a free country? Think again. Thousands of years ago, in a place we now call Sumeria, the ancient gods came down from the sky. This remarkable event is part of our recorded history. We are told these stories as fables, legends, myths, and yet they are part of written history that also includes trade agreements, wars, and lineages. How did it all begin? Who were these beings that our ancestors worshipped as if they were gods? Sitchin, in his book The Stairway to Heaven, stated, "The Akkadians called their predecessors Sumerians and spoke of the land of Sumer. It was in fact the biblical land of Shinar. It was the land whose name literally meant the land of the Watchers. It was indeed the Egyptian Te Neter, land of the Watchers, the land from which gods had come to Egypt." So Sumeria means land of the Watchers, and it is from this land that the Elohim, or Shining Ones, who govern the Watchers, also came. In The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind, Julian Jaynes tells us something interesting about these governing gods. Throughout Mesopotamia, from the earliest times of Sumer and Akkad, all lands were owned by gods, and men were their slaves. Of this, the cuneiform texts leave no doubt whatsoever. City-state had its principal god, and the king king was described in the very earliest written documents that we have as the tenant farmer of the god. All lands were owned by gods, and men were their slaves. Interesting notion, and one we shall return to, for it is a fact that even today we are still the slaves to the descendants of these gods. We need to take a look at these Elohim for a moment to find out who these gods were that supposedly enslaved men and were in charge of the Watchers. Elohim is a term used often in the Old Testament for the Lord, an incorrect usage, as the term is plural and means shining ones. We can see this plurality in the text from Genesis 1:26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." And again in Genesis 6:2, the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. This term, sons of God, is literally sons of gods, and comes from Ben Ha Elohim, sons of the shining ones. These were the sons of those shining lights that descended to earth. There is in fact strong evidence in our language that these shining ones spread out across the world. The Sumerian word El means simply bright or shining. The Old Irish Elil means shining. Old Cornish El means shining. Elf means shining, and hence we have elves as tall, mysterious, angelic beings. The Inca term La is bright or to shine. The Babylonian Elu is to shine. This itself reveals the vast spread of these sons of God, or shining ones, the lights from the sky, and their influence to this day in all our cultures. Baal, the deity often spoke of as the Lord in the Bible, is also seen as a shining one in the Old Testament, and is called the owner. At that time, there were many owners or shining ones. In fact, there was one for each village, as if each gathering of humanity needed watching over and controlling. To the Hebrews, the Elohim were nature divinities from ancient Sumerian times. According to General Albert Pike, the famous Masonic historian, in his work Morals and Dogma, the Elohim were the host of heaven, ascending and descending to pass messages to and from God. This is our history. This is the history of the world. That beings of light descended and ascended to the sky, very often on shining craft. angels are all over the world, in almost every culture. Some of the shining ones were termed watchers and are akin to the angels of the Lord. Youare Elohim means simply leader of the shining ones. The great God of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam is in fact the leader of the lights that descended from the sky. The leader of the massive invasion force that enslaved humanity. So now we have these plural Elohim, or shining ones, as gods, being above even the kings, and supplying watchers to watch over man. These watchers also appear in Egypt as the pantheon of gods. The Egyptian Tar-Neter is a name for the gods and means guardian or watcher. Tar-Neter is also the name for the Red Sea Straits, which connected Mesopotamia and Egypt and is known as the place of the gods. These watchers were also known as Urshu and were classed as being less divine than the gods. The ancients spoke of a time when there were gods or shining ones who ruled up and down Sumeria and Egypt and who employed watchers over the ordinary folk. In the same way a pharaoh of Egypt was a god on earth, so too priests of the Elohim were the shining lights on earth. This history is where the popular film and TV series Stargate originates. So, even in ancient Egypt, by the time of the writing of the Book of the Dead, there was confusion. To Egypt, the Egyptians wrote, from Tar-Ur, the far foreign land, whose name Ur meant oldest. It is the very location that the originator of the world's greatest religions trained, Abraham. He was trained by the shining ones, the watchers, the great lights of the sky, and he started the yoke of mainstream religion on this very planet. Billions of people across time and across the world are yoked into their religion, created by a man who was trained by beings of light that descended from the sky. For millennia, we mere humans have done their bidding. Indeed, these shining ones were known as serpents and worshipped as such, mainly because of their appearance. Even in Greece, these stories evolved into the concepts of the gods, titans, and humans. Gods mating with humanity who were their slaves. All the gods have links, symbols, and attributes of the serpents. Thousands of years later, over 1 billion people are still yoked to the Catholic Church, which resides in the Vatican, a place that means abode of serpents. On the other side of the world, it appears these shining ones and watchers also descended. According to the legend of Wotan from Mesoamerica, this Wotan was the serpent who was descended of the race of Can, and was called a guardian or watcher. amazingly similar to Canaan. These Canaanites are implicated in many places, revolving around the Shining Ones and the original serpent priests. From this time onwards, serpent worship spread across the globe, and we have to wonder why. The serpent was known in the language of Canaan variously as Ub, Ab, Ob, Ob, Oph, Up, Eph, Ev. In the Mayan language, Can also means serpent, as in Kukulkan, the bird serpent, and just as in the ancient Sumerian, Akan and the Scottish Can for serpent, which is where we get the word canny, like the wise snake. The Roman god of fire, comes from the Babylonian Can, or serpent, and Vul, or fire, showing an etymological link across thousands of miles and oceans and meaning. Therefore, that Vulcan is the shining serpent. The Hebrews term these watchers as Nun Resh Ayin, meaning those who watch. In the Greek, this is translated as gigantes, or giants, a race that even the writer Hesiod featured as being monstrous. Now we can understand the role of the giants seen across the world of folklore as the presence of the watchers. In almost every culture, there are tales of these powerful and wise giants that ruled over humans. A great many stone circles and ancient monoliths are named after them, as if they gave us the knowledge to build such places to help us understand the movements of the heavenly host. Scribe Enoch even gives us the names of these watchers. And these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels who is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Saraquel, one of the holy angels who is set over the spirits, who sin in spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. Remiel, one of the holy angels whom God set over those who rise. Note that Gabriel, the messenger who told of the birth of Jesus and who passed on the wisdom to Muhammad, is in charge of the serpents. Remiel is over those who rise, those seeking enlightenment. Enoch actually wrote about them and in fact for them in the book of Enoch. In the Bible and the book of Enoch, these shining ones are called angels, archangels, or cherubim. We do not find angels with wings. There are no original stories of them being supernatural. They are, in fact, quite ordinary. It is always Gabriel who informs the people of a coming special birth. A doctor, maybe, involved in what many say was the hybridization of the human race with aliens. would he have known any child to have special powers, such as those attributed to Jesus? Incidentally, Jesus was known as the wise serpent. He died on the cross, but sloughed off his shrouded skin in the tomb, and then ascended into heaven. All of this is based on a much older understanding of the true nature of the Shining Ones, that they were serpent-like beings of light who invaded Earth. Follow my yoke, indeed. Michael is the warrior and protector, accompanied by angels wielding fiery swords. What were these swords? Explained to us in the language of the period, they are surely something far advanced. Each and every one of them has their own specific duty. Beings with titles, angelic titles, as messengers and ambassadors of the Shining Ones. The title cherubim means exiles and could be an indication of the origins of the angels, exiled from their homeland or even planet. Enoch, the consecrated one, would later write up the history of these fallen angels, who spread across the globe as the great Shining Ones, teaching, measuring, and building the world's most mysterious ancient monuments. Of course, we must not forget the seraphim of Numbers 21:6 and elsewhere. These mystical beings have hands, a face, legs, and great powers from God, because they are in the light. They have symbolic wings, meaning they could fly. Their name means Shining Ones, or fiery serpents. They are enlightened beings. Jewish literature tells us that the angels can fly, tell the future, shapeshift, speak Hebrew, and are emanations of the divine shining light. If these are not attributes of extraterrestrials, then what is? And yet we are told these are myths. These writings rank alongside mundane, ordinary history, lores, philosophy. We are told by Enoch about the Nephilim, or Watchers. These are the angels who seem to have been the military arm of the Shining Ones, and who are initially employed to guard the Garden of Eden, but then began to mix with the indigenous peoples of the area. From this union, a hybrid race was produced, a race of giants. These also passed on knowledge and taught combat and how to make weapons. This was a crime, and they were outlawed by the Shining Ones, who departed Earth, leaving behind a hybrid species to rule. These were illuminated beings, wise, knowledgeable, and with great power over the indigenous human population. Among men, they were worshipped and held in high esteem. Their bloodlines would become the rulers, kings, and queens, pharaohs and high priests, wizards and magi. that moment, the entire world would be ruled by an elite bloodline who worked tirelessly to ensure the purity of their own kind, who bred only within strict rules, who claimed divine right to rule. Thousands of years later, nothing has changed. Hundreds of royals across the world still hold the vast majority of the wealth and power. The same families run the institutions, such as the civil service. They own and monitor the vast majority of the world's media, power companies, arms manufacturers, chemical plants, petrol producers, and more. Think about this for a moment. People who claim divine right for some imaginary being in the sky actually rule. Even in so-called Republican states, the leaders are chosen, not by the people, but by those in power. Nobody becomes president of the United States unless they have been vetted, approved, and blackmailed. The real power lies behind the scenes with civil servants who can trace their family line of descent back thousands of years to family members who were doing pretty much the same thing. Religions originate in the same historical tales of great lights that descended to earth, taught the humans, brought them out of the dark ages, bred with them, and established rulers and priests. Using propaganda, mind control, and even force, humans were treated like sheep and told to believe and behave. We had to worship the lights in the sky. We had to bow to their representatives on earth. And we had to pay the priest for the privilege of doing so. Land was taken from us, and we were told to pay to live upon it. To pay, we had to work every waking moment. Then we had to pay taxes to the relatives of the rulers and priests in government, who made laws to keep us controlled. We were thrown into war against our brothers, told to build pyramids and great walls, tested upon and abused every step of the way. If any of this is sounding familiar, it is simply because absolutely nothing has changed. From the 17th century onwards, we believed we had found a way of revolting against this oppression. Across Europe and the US, so-called freemen fought against the tyranny. And yet, the fact is this. The rulers had people in both camps. The U.S. War of Independence, for instance, was led by men on both sides who were members of the Free Masonic lodges, who were often themselves descendants of royal stock. The English Civil War ended up with the English begging for a royal to come back on the throne. It was all stage managed. It has always been stage managed. The First and Second World Wars changed the political map of Europe, and yet the royals and religions remain. Power cleverly shifts around, but always at the very top, the same families run the world. Modern control began in the 18th century as a reaction to the growing enlightenment of the human population. The printed word had an unfortunate side effect for those in power. People began to gain knowledge and spread dissent. One very clever method of controlling such dissent is to cause it, own it, and control it. Create your very own group that seemingly goes against the status quo. And not only do you manipulate those who are naturally drawn towards it, you gather your own secondary power base to play around with. One sure way of winning any game is to own both sides. In the 18th century, the modern era of mind control began with the creation of the Illuminati. The very name itself must remind us of the very fact that those who originally came to Earth were the illuminated ones. In the 18th century, a Freemason wrote the following words: "There are a certain number of people who have arrived at the highest degree of imposture. They have conceived the project of reigning over opinions, and of conquering not kingdoms, not provinces, but the human mind. This project is gigantic and has something of madness in it, which causes neither alarm nor uneasiness. But when we descend to details, then we regard what passes before our eyes of the hidden principles. When we perceive a sudden revolution in favor of ignorance and incapacity, we must look for the cause of it, and if we find that a revealed and known system explains all the phenomena which succeed each other with terrifying rapidity, how can we not believe it?" Standard history tells us that they were started by Jean Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Order of the Illuminati. Weishaupt was born in Bavaria on the 6th of February, 1748. His father, Baron Ixtat, was a professor of the University of Ingolstadt, having married the niece of the curator. The Baron secured a scholarship at the Jesuit College for Adam, who then went on to become a law student at the age of 15. Ingolstadt was a steadfastly Jesuit area and had been for over 200 years. Dissent was not permitted, even though they had been partially suppressed in 1773 by Clement XIV. It had been said of the Jesuits that they were the world's largest and most powerful secret service, due mainly to the fact that they were feared by many in the Catholic Church, and that a universal confession could well be utilized for blackmail. According to a converted nun, the Jesuits offer the world at large a system of theology by which every law, divine or human, may be broken with impunity, and by which the very bulls of popes may be defied. It is a ghastly religion. It is a religion to be abhorred by all honest and honorable men. So according to this 19th century writer, they were even above the bulls of the Pope. Edwin A. Sherman, an American Freemason, also writing in the 19th century, stated, "The Jesuits laugh at us, and during their hilarity, the rattlesnake is coiled at our feet. climbing to strike us in the heart. Even President Lincoln, who was finally assassinated after numerous attempts, said, "The Jesuits are so expert in those deeds of blood that Henry IV said that it was impossible to escape them, and he became their victim, though he did all he could to protect himself." I know that the Jesuits never forget nor forsake. It seems like a peculiar world that the Jesuits inhabit. On the one hand, they fraternize with Freemasons, royalty, and presidents. And on the other, taking an oath which puts them at odds with just about everybody who is not Catholic. It is into this world that Weishaupt was brought up. By 1775, Weishaupt was professor of canon law at Ingolstadt, and it was in this year he or somebody else to form a plan of an association of which he would head. This association would oppose the forces of superstition and lies, or in other words, religion. The thoughts of many commentators is that Weishaupt so hated the Jesuits that he thoroughly intended to do away with them once and for all. The truth is that Weishaupt was in fact trained by the Jesuits for the purpose of raising a worldwide army of spies who would constantly feed back information from their own enemies. The information that the Jesuits could not get anymore through their confessions. In fact, the Illuminati even set up their own confessions in line with that of the Jesuits. All of this surveillance and confession was fed back to the Jesuits from the very people who were supposed to be against them. How better to find out what was in the mind of the opposition than to be the opposition? This is a standard double ploy, utilized for centuries by the secret services of all religions and states. They even fed the anti-Semitic rhetoric, which suited the Catholic Church down to the ground. Through associations with the Freemasons, the Jesuits managed to get information from and influence to the Freemasons of the globe. These business leaders, politicians, military commanders, religionists, and so-called free thinkers were in fact being manipulated yet again. And very often with the exact same devices that had been used for thousands of years. Belief in a divine entity, worship of a being of light, otherwise known as Lucifer, and even the concept that their own secret line stretched back to the time of Egypt and beyond. What many people didn't realize was this: all of that was true. They were being controlled and manipulated by a sacred line that did originate thousands of years ago, and they still are. Following Weishaupt's amazing creation out of the order of a much older institution, we suddenly have several worldwide revolutions, and the balance of power supposedly shifting like never before. The Illuminati stretch back into the realm of the Shining Ones in Afghanistan. This link is with the Roshinaya, or Illuminated Ones, and reference to them comes from the House of Wisdom in Cairo, a veritable fount of esoteric knowledge predating the Roshinaya by hundreds of years. The earliest leader we know of is Bayezid Ansari, who claimed descent from the helpers of Mohammed. Using merchants and soldiers, Bayezid eventually spread his message across the world by word of mouth, and those Gnostics and mystics who heard the message already understood the secret of illumination. As Archon Darul says in Secret Societies, coincidences of date and beliefs connect these Bavarian Illuminati with the Afghan ones, and also with other cults which called themselves Illuminated. The beginning of the 17th century saw the foundations of the Illuminated ones of Spain, the Alumbrados, condemned in an edict of the Grand Inquisition in 1623. In 1654, the Illuminated Journets came into public notice in France. Documents still extant show several points of resemblance between the German and Central Asian Illuminists, points which were hard to account for on the grounds of pure coincidence. Weishaupt founded his Illuminati on May Day, 1776, in Bavaria. He called himself Brother Spartacus, as if mimicking the rebellion from within. There was no democratic leadership, no voting, no equality. The Illuminati was led by clever and powerful people. Very quickly, it set about creating an international network of spies and counter-spies. They set up in cells, with each cell having a secret superior. The structure was closed, with lower levels having no idea who was above them. Weishaupt then targeted the Freemasons and was initiated into the Munich Lodge in 1777. He attempted to reform them, and when this failed, he began recruitment drives within their own lodges. It was a brilliant ploy, using a secret society to build a secret society. His stated goal was to perfect human nature through education. He would free people from government and organized religion. In this way, Weishaupt grew his Illuminati rapidly and drew in those who were seen by government and religious leaders organized religion. In this way, Weishaupt grew his Illuminati rapidly and drew in those who were seen by government and religious leaders as trouble. Claiming to free people from the bounds of society, the Illuminati, in fact, gave them even harder rules and regulations to follow. Even their reading literature was prescribed. This was not enlightenment or freedom. This was control of the mind under a veil. Indeed, independent thought and action was forbidden by the rules of the order. Enlightenment, they said, would only take place under the guide of the superior. But he didn't stop there. In fact, he received the financial assistance of Duke Ernest II of Saxe-Gotha-Altenburg, where he lived and wrote works on Illuminism. The very royal and religionist-style leader the Illuminati were supposedly against actually funded them. And yet, we are told it was disbanded. We are supposed to believe that thousands of people across Europe suddenly stopped attending Illuminati meetings, that they just gave up. We are told that because the Bavarians had outlawed it, their grand ideas of reducing the dominance of religion and state ended there. And yet, even in 1798, there were rumblings that they had not died. Many even claimed they were behind the French Revolution, which brought down government, royalty, and religion. So powerful was the fear of the Illuminati that Christian preachers gave sermons across Europe and even in the United States. What we do know is that the world was changed. Some royal houses did fall, only to be replaced by people who actually had royal blood. Religion was supposedly attacked and changed. Revolutions occurred across the world. And all this following the creation of the Illuminati and within a very short period of time. The surface story looks good for the easily led. The subtle hidden story works well for the conspiracy theorist and free thinker. But the truth is that nothing at all really changed. It was a massive and elaborate smokescreen that served its purpose brilliantly. Free thinkers really did believe they'd made a difference. Here's a brief example of how they made no difference at all. The United Kingdom is a very small place in comparison to many countries in the world, and yet the power it holds is immense. It has a massive commonwealth that includes countries it can call on during times of war, such as Australia, Canada, and more. The head of state for all these is the present king or queen. That head of state owns huge amounts of land in the world, shares in the world's biggest companies. They are head of the religion and government. They can dissolve parliament at any time they wish. Parliament itself is made up of a small amount of elected ministers, who all have to give way to an unelected House of Lords, who answer to the king or queen. Beneath the head of state, there are dukes, earls, lords, barons, and more. All of these are in positions of power in government, institutions, media, religion, and companies. They are the ones who hold all the power. Anybody who steps outside of that special bloodline club is immediately taken care of, such as Princess Diana. Just because every now and then a commoner such as Richard Branson manages to make a few million means nothing. Even he needs permission from the little committees to fly his planes, set up a business, or run his trains. If he or his company steps out of line, then permission is not given. Toe the line, virgin or no virgin. And just because you may live in a republic, don't think for one moment you are immune. Take Hollywood, for example. The stars of Hollywood are themselves treated like royalty. Some step out of line and are no longer required for the big films. Why? Because the big film companies are owned by the same old elite. Many stars are themselves descended from royalty. U.S. comedian Ellen DeGeneres is 15th cousin to Princess Kate Middleton. Angelina Jolie is descended from the kings of France. Brad Pitt is descended from King Henry II of England. Hugh Grant is a descendant of King Henry VII of England. Brooke Shields, descended from King Henry IV of France. Uma Thurman, descended from King Edward I of England. In fact, the list is extensive, and if we take this further and look at the many executives of film, distribution, and studios, then we find a similar story. In the UK, the story is the same. The world-famous BBC is run by several committees, all of which are populated by the same old boys club that sit in the House of so-called Lords, and were educated by one of those inbred institutions, such as Eden. All of these people own land, buildings, companies. They run all of the institutions, such as the religions, the major charities, the arms companies, chemical giants, media outlets, police, military, and more. They even control access to stately homes, castles, and places of historical importance. On top of all this, the hidden wealth of these people of the bloodline is enormous. Hidden beneath the Vatican is a treasure trove that could solve all of Africa's problems. The British royal family have so much art, jewelry, and antiques that the world's financial problems could be solved. Add up all the other royal families of the world, the barons and earls, the distant relatives and friends, and you have a staggering wealth in hidden gems. Between the royals, religions, and so-called secret societies of the world, we have much more than just wealth. We have power so vast, it is almost unimaginable. And all of these are part of the very same bloodline that thousands of years ago spawned planet Earth from the beings of light that descended to enslave us. Remember those lines from Mesopotamian cuneiform? That from the earliest times of Sumer and Akkad, all lands were owned by gods, and men were their slaves. These were the illuminated ones. In the 18th century, their name reemerged. They spread, embedded themselves in Freemasonry, controlled people and forced change. The same Freemasonry that has members from royalty, religion, business, military, police, charity, media, and just about everywhere else. One bloodline to rule them all, and in the darkness, blind them. Now, in the 21st century, we are still slaves to the masters who've accumulated vast estates, power, and wealth. We are controlled from birth. We are given a number that must move along with us throughout life. We need that number to get health care, to be allowed to indebt ourselves to their banks, to vote in the mockery they call democracy, to claim a pension we have paid for tenfold. During our lifetime, they have the power to take away our freedom at any point with their police force and their laws. To send us off to war, to force purchase the property they told us we owned. To take away our children and civil rights. We are told to bow to the alien deity dressed in fine rags and call them Majesty. We are branded by a religion, or even lack of it. Our intelligence is measured, our education controlled and manipulated and charged for. The internet is increasingly a tool for propaganda and mind control. Drugs are mass tested on us as if we're some kind of guinea pig. Our food intake is constantly controlled by the nanny state in the same way our entertainment is. The news is carefully chosen by editors who are told what to choose by the owners, who just happen to be members of the elite bloodline. False stories are created and manipulated to make us lab rats move this way or that. Religions are constantly used against us to make us look outward and not inward at our own leaders. And all the time, real people in the world see and experience real events. Thousands and thousands of people have witnessed UFO activity around the globe.
That's not true, people. Nobody witnessed this right here. This is a hoax, no doubt about it. And like I said, the documentary is 100% on point, except for this right here. We already know it's the bloodline of the fallen that run in the whole wide world. So excuse this part of the damn documentary right here, and you'll get the 100%.
In each case, the governments cover up, create false stories, and hide the truth.
They actually want you to believe in this right here. They want you to believe in it. That's how they do it, people. You need to wake up. And these people that you see, they so-called show you coming from another so-called world, they're not the one who create mankind. Just remember that. That's the most important part you need to get in. They don't create mankind. They came after mankind was created by the Father. That's just how it is.
What does our strictly controlled media say? They mock, according to the instructions they are given. Humankind is not the master race of planet Earth. Humankind is enslaved to the ancient gods that came down to Earth thousands of years ago. They have become so deeply embedded within our society that we no longer see them. The universities that translate ancient texts are owned and run by them, and it is they who create the professors, the experts that we, the idiots, must listen to. They tell us that the ancient historical texts written by our ancestors are nothing more than religious mythology. That serpent-faced aliens who descended to Earth with fiery weapons and strange craft are all from their bizarre imagination. All the time, they then tell us to go to church and pray to an imaginary god, to make offerings to dead saints, to yoke ourselves evermore to their systems. Freedom. What is that? Unless you can somehow disappear into the wilds of some huge forest and escape all their influence and control, then you are not free. You, me, and everybody else on this planet are subjects of influence. Whether from the TV set, cinema, radio, or supermarket, we are being constantly fed carefully prepared information that meets the goal of those ancient gods, to enslave you and me.
Yes, and that's a bam. Yeah, but I'm telling you people, what you need to understand, the so-called watchers of mankind is what mate with people. You understand? They're the one who did that. Those are the fallen angels, no doubt about it. And then this is what you get from them, the bloodline of the fallen running the whole wide world. That's just what it is, people. Catch me on the run. Bam.